Welcome back to New Day. U.S. officials are revealing growing concerns over the threat of U.S. and European citizens trained in jihad and then returning to their home country. In just the past days, Attorney General Eric Holder has said he is scared, alarmed by what is happening in Syria and what it could mean back here at home. Take a listen.
In some ways, it's more frightening than anything I think I've seen as Attorney General. This is a very real thing. I guess just last month or so, the first American became a suicide bomber. So this is not a theoretical problem that we are dealing with. This is something that's very real.
Well, how real is it, and why haven't we done anything more about it, and what will we do now? Congressman Adam Schiff joins us. He's a Democrat from California. He's also a member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. It's great to have you, Representative. Thank you for joining us. I remember sitting across from the president talking about the crossed red line in Syria. At first he said, let's see what's going on. Then all of a sudden he wanted to bomb Syria. And then all of a sudden we had found a solution where we would negotiate removal of weapons. Now we have one of the biggest humanitarian crises going on in that country right now. But we haven't heard much about it until now. Are you guys on top of the situation there?
Well, we're on top of the situation, certainly from an intelligence point of view, and I think the Attorney General was exactly right. This is probably the most significant threat since the core al-Qaeda of the last decade. It's a metastasized threat. It's now, as you point out, very much a threat in Syria, in Iraq, really across North Africa. Let's not forget AQAP in Yemen still trying to blow up our aircraft. But the big threat, as the Attorney General pointed out, is you have thousands of these foreign fighters, some of them from the United States, many from Europe, many who could come back to Europe and then come to the United States very easily. So this is a grave concern that some of those people may come back from Europe on planes attempting to bring bombs. Others may come back from Europe and attempt another kind of a Boston bombing, low tech, but nonetheless pretty devastating back in our homeland.
So did we make a mistake with kind of allowing that situation to fester?
Well, I'm not sure that we made a mistake, but certainly the situation in Syria has grown out of control. I don't know that we have the capacity to control all those events, particularly those that have come about as a result of the Arab Spring. We certainly can try, we certainly do try, but in the midst of this civil war, there just aren't a lot of good options. And putting in weapons, for example, which is one of the big issues, should we be providing weapons in Syria? That's not going to address the foreign fighter problem. We're still going to have that, whether we're arming the opposition or we're not. As long as these foreign jihadis are flocking to Syria, coming from the United States, coming from Europe and elsewhere, this is going to be a major threat. Probably, Chris, the most significant things we can do are some of the things the Attorney General enumerated, and that is we got to make sure we partner with Europe so that we know who's coming back. We need to make sure that they take action against those that are providing material support to terrorism in Syria and elsewhere, because many of the European countries don't even have the laws to allow them to do that. So there are steps like that that we can and really must take together.
Well, it's frightening because on one level it sounds just like what happened in Boston, that you had Russia, who supposedly did or did not give information to the intelligence community here about the brothers and the risk, and either we didn't communicate it well or we never really got that information, then you wound up having the bombing. So are we capable of dealing with this threat? And if so, are we dealing with it the way we can?
Well, we are capable of dealing with the threat, but the challenge is they only have to get it right once, and we have to try to prevent potentially hundreds or even more plots against the United States. So you have all of these people that will be trying to come back, these foreign fighters. You have others that may not even be in the fight there, that might be inspired by AQAP online. And we have to defend against all those things. And sometimes you don't have the evidence to go out and arrest people that you may have a concern about, like we had with the Tsarnaevs. So even when you get it right, it may not be enough 100% of the time. And that's probably just something we're going to have to live with. The good news, and there isn't a whole lot out there, but the good news is that al-Qaeda's ability to mount the massive kind of attack we saw on 9/11 has been seriously diminished. So unlikely to see something like that again. But unfortunately, I think we are likely to see some of these smaller one-off kind of attempts, either self-radicalized people in the U.S. or these foreign fighters coming back with easy travel, no visa travel to the U.S.
Am I wrong to say that I am surprised that I haven't heard more about this. I mean, when I talk to people in your community, not the political side, but the intelligence side, not to say that you can't be political and intelligent, but that when I discuss it with that community, they say, hey, look out for ISIS in North Africa. Watch out what's going on in Iraq. But we got real trouble here with Afghanistan. It's bleeding into what we see in the Middle East, maybe even Lebanon. You never hear about Syria as something that the U.S. is going to be very dependent upon. Why now?
Well, it's been certainly in the background, I think, in the public consciousness all along. In the foreground, from the intelligence point of view, we've been very concerned about this. But, Chris, I think you're right. ISIS, the Islamic State, wherever we're calling it now, its seizure of vast amounts of territory in Iraq and in Syria, the growing regional nature of that conflict, the potential of it dominoing into a problem in Jordan, that has so sucked the oxygen out of the room that seems to be only where we're focused on internationally, and now, of course, the fight between Israel and Hamas. But nonetheless, in terms of the threat to the homeland, nothing really eclipses the threat of those foreign fighters coming back from Syria predominantly, now possibly from Iraq, and posing a danger to us here at home.
Obviously, what we're aware of in the media and reporting and what we're focusing on isn't as important as what you are doing in the intelligence community. So it's comforting to hear you're aware of the threat and you're doing what you can. Representative Schiff, thank you very much for joining us on New